So I wanted to start by reading the Cetokhila Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya. That's Majjhima 16, the wilderness in the heart. And then I would go into the final talk in Bloom. And this is just like a broad brush. I think some of these dhammas that the Buddha is talking about that we need to be striving for or cultivate, it can be kind of hard-hitting and feel like we're so far away from it. So then tempering it with this bloom, I find very helpful with actually how to apply these things. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove, Anathapindika's park. There he addressed the bhikkhus thus. Bhikkhus, Venerable Sir, they replied. The Blessed One said this. Bhikkhus, that any bhikkhu who has not abandoned 5 wildernesses in the heart and not severed 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this Dhamma and discipline, that is impossible. What, bhikkhus, are the 5 wildernesses in the heart that he has not abandoned? Here a bhikkhu is doubtful, uncertain, undecided, and unconfident about the teacher, and thus his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, that is the first wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. Again, a bhikkhu is doubtful, uncertain, undecided, and unconfident about the Dhamma. As his mind does not incline to ardor, that is the second wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. Again, a bhikkhu is doubtful, uncertain, undecided, and unconfident about the Sangha. As his mind does not incline to ardor, that is the third wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. Again, a bhikkhu is doubtful, uncertain, undecided, and unconfident about the training. As his mind does not incline to ardor, that is the fourth wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. Again, a bhikkhu is angry and displeased with his companions in the holy life, resentful and callous toward them, and thus his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, that is the 5th wilderness in the heart that he has not abandoned. These are the 5 wildernesses in the heart that he has not abandoned. What, bhikkhus, are the 5 shackles in the heart he has not severed? Here a bhikkhu is not free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for sensual pleasures, and thus his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, that is the first shackle in the heart that he has not severed. Again, a bhikkhu is not free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for the body, and his mind does not incline to ardor. That is the second shackle in the heart that he has not severed. Again, a bhikkhu is not free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for form. As his mind does not incline to ardor, that is the third shackle in the heart he has not severed. Again, a bhikkhu eats as much as he likes until his belly is full and indulges in the pleasures of sleeping, lolling, and drowsing. And his mind does not incline to ardor. That is the 4th shackle in the heart that he has not severed. Again, a bhikkhu lives the holy life, aspiring to some order of gods, thus, by this virtue or observance or asceticism or holy life, I shall become a great god or some lesser god. And thus his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind does not incline to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, this is the 5th shackle in the heart that he has not severed. These are the 5 shackles in the heart he has not severed. Bhikkhus, that any bhikkhu who has not abandoned these 5 wildernesses in the heart and severed these 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this Dhamma and discipline, that is impossible. Bhikkhus, that any bhikkhu who has abandoned 5 wildernesses in the heart and severed 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this Dhamma and discipline, that is possible. What bhikkhus are the 5 wildernesses in the heart that he has abandoned? Here a bhikkhu is not doubtful, uncertain, undecided, or unconfident about the teacher, and thus his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, this first wilderness in the heart has been abandoned by him. Again, a bhikkhu is not doubtful, uncertain, undecided, or unconfident about the Dhamma. As his mind inclines to ardor, this second wilderness in the heart has been abandoned by him. Again, a bhikkhu is not doubtful, uncertain, undecided, or unconfident about the Sangha. As his mind inclines to ardor, this third wilderness in the heart has been abandoned by him. Again, a bhikkhu is not doubtful, uncertain, undecided, or unconfident about the training. As his mind inclines to ardor, this fourth wilderness in the heart has been abandoned by him. Again, a bhikkhu is not angry and displeased with his companions in the holy life, nor resentful and callous toward them, and thus his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, this fifth wilderness in the heart has been abandoned by him. These are the 5 wildernesses in the heart that he has abandoned. What bhikkhus are the 5 shackles in the heart that he has severed? Here a bhikkhu is free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for sensual pleasures, and thus his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, this first shackle in the heart has been severed by him. Again, a bhikkhu is free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for the body. As his mind inclines to ardor, this second shackle in the heart has been severed by him. Again, a bhikkhu is free from lust, desire, affection, thirst, fever, and craving for form. As his mind inclines to ardor, this third shackle in the heart has been severed by him. Again, a bhikkhu does not eat as much as he likes until his belly is full, and he does not indulge in the pleasures of sleeping, lolling, and drowsing. As his mind inclines to ardor, this fourth shackle in the heart has been severed by him. Again, a bhikkhu does not live the holy life aspiring to some order of gods. Thus, by this virtue or observance or asceticism or holy life, I shall become a great god or some lesser god. Thus his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving. As his mind inclines to ardor, devotion, perseverance, and striving, this fifth shackle in the heart has been severed by him. These are the 5 shackles in the heart that he has severed. Bhikkhus, that any bhikkhu who has abandoned these 5 wildernesses in the heart and severed these 5 shackles in the heart should come to growth, increase, and fulfillment in this Dhamma and discipline, that is possible. He develops the basis for spiritual power, consisting in concentration due to zeal and determined striving. He develops the basis for spiritual power, consisting in concentration due to energy and determined striving. He develops the basis for spiritual power, consisting in concentration due to purity of mind and determined striving. He develops the basis for spiritual power, consisting in concentration due to investigation and determined striving. And enthusiasm is the 5th. A bhikkhu who thus possesses the 15 factors, including enthusiasm, is capable of breaking out, capable of enlightenment, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. Suppose there were a hen with 8, 10, or 12 eggs, which she had covered, incubated, and nurtured properly. Even though she did not wish, "Oh, that my chicks might pierce their shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatch out safely," Yet the chicks are capable of piercing their shells with the points of their claws and beaks and hatching out safely. So too, a bhikkhu who thus possesses the 15 factors, including enthusiasm, is capable of breaking out, capable of enlightenment, capable of attaining the supreme security from bondage. That's what the Blessed One said. The bhikkhus were satisfied and delighted in the Blessed One's words. And this is the final talk in Bloom, page 129. It's called Opening the Eye. People will wonder what happened to you when you come back speaking fluent Pali and hugging everybody on the sidewalk. The summer of love has returned. To pull together what we've been at for the week, I just want to talk a little bit about the Eightfold Path in general. In a retreat, you get to reduce the amount of talking, and whatever conversations come up are usually refined and positive, just enjoying each other's company. This is the background, the preliminaries. You've purified the preliminary structures of virtue through right speech, moderate speech, and silence. And during this time, you're engaged in right action as well. You're being merciful to the beings around you, and, of course, participating generously with chores and helping in the kitchen. These are generally uplifting types of behavior characteristic of retreats in monasteries. Everybody's usually on their best behavior, providing a background preliminary for beginning the path. We get a chance to have a supported environment for the upper 3 factors of this path. Outside of here, I know you're in the midst of life, working and going to school, dealing with all the multiple layers of demands that the modern world makes on you. But when you find your way to a formal retreat, you get a little envelope package moving you out of this. Of course, 9 or 10 days is not very long, really. As I mentioned, the first 3 days you're hardly here. When you finally get here, you may sometimes experience dryness or aching knees. You might forget what it is you're supposed to be doing or have trouble sleeping, and then suddenly you're near the end. Perhaps, though, you touched on something somewhere along the line, even for a few hours, or on a certain day you relaxed and felt peaceful. Peaceful, but not tired, energized, happy, just content. This is touching on the beautiful. The Buddha is trying to structure an information pack that leads you to that sense of ease and contentment, which is what every human wants. They don't know that quite often. They try to get it in very unskillful ways, but that is ultimately what they want, resolution. They want to finally feel that sense of simplicity and contentment and ease, and there's nothing more they could ask to have. It doesn't take much. As long as you have enough food and water, that's about it. Sometimes I've felt very content even though I didn't have enough food. That's possible with almost no special environment. If you come close to that, then it's beautiful. And it's too bad you would not have another month or so to just drop deeper into that, for it to become the new normal. That's ultimately where you want to go. The mind seems to have levels. It has a certain level of demand for sensory stimulation requirements that it's used to, and it won't give up its accustomed level of activity for a little while. If you withdraw from those things, it wonders what you're up to, but eventually it will surrender and it will drop to the next level, the new normal. And you'll feel that. Perhaps in the retreat, you felt at some point that you dropped into a new normal, an absence of sound, and it was so fine. Then the idea of just sitting still for an hour or 2 hours seemed to be perfectly adequate. You're going to go through a number of these levels, and pretty soon you reach a new neighborhood, a very good neighborhood. You're starting to get close to samadhi. In fact, as you're walking around, if you're in a mood of contentment, you're feeling joy. You've enjoyed your friends, you've enjoyed the atmosphere and started to settle down. It's a type of samadhi, the edge of samadhi. Samadhi is a very beautiful thing. It's alive. It's full of wisdom. I've emphasized a few times you shouldn't sharply divide wisdom and insight off from samadhi. Samadhi has content to it, has all kinds of sophisticated mental structures to it that are the embodiment, facsimiles of profound wisdom. My original ordaining teacher was Bhante Gunaratana. He's been teaching for probably 50 years, giving retreats and so forth, and he almost always ends every session with this quote from the Buddha: "There's no jhana without wisdom, no wisdom without jhana, but one who has both jhana and wisdom is close to nibbana." Peace. In his own life and experience, he has recognized that people tend to separate these two things out. There's been a tradition of separation of wisdom / panya and serenity / jhana or samadhi. The word concentration sometimes can induce a sense of tension, like being at school, concentrating, doing things you don't want to do. Samadhi is a very beautiful word indicating balance and serenity. Your emotional dimension and your intellectual faculties are balanced and harmonious, working finally the way they should. All the gears are properly meshed. It's a profoundly beautiful experience to have the body and the mind integrated, working the way they should. How do you know they're working the way they should? Because it feels like it. If you have to ask too much about how your practice is going, it's probably not going well enough. It could be better. Usually you don't have to be told that you're having fun, that you're actually having a beautiful experience. You won't need to ask, "Am I having a beautiful experience?" You will know. Otherwise, it's not beautiful enough. If you have to ask, keep going. There is integration of serenity and wisdom. They're not in any sense of opposition. They stand supporting and intertwined with each other. It seems like I've read this talk before. I wonder if they put a repeat in here. Well, it can't hurt to read it again. We've been talking through the week about loving kindness and joy and energy. These are all profound supports for the insight into the transience of our life, that our life is going by like a dream, each day just flipping over a page in a book. It's just that fast and the day is completely gone, absolutely gone, mysteriously. How does it happen? Time and its passage are such mysteries. What is the past? Whole books are written on this. What is it? Does it exist at all? Is there a future somewhere in the slipstream of time? It's a beautiful mystery, and you really can't stabilize any of it. You can't get security ultimately except by relaxing. The best you can do is feel secure. You can never actually get secure, but you might as well feel secure. If you feel secure, it's as good as being secure. In fact, nothing else will do. Being secure, but not feeling secure, you might as well not be secure. This is relaxing in the midst of total uncertainty of being able to ever know for sure how it's going to be. This is the struggle, the not wanting that to be, not liking that to be. That truth arising every now and then is what causes the problems. But if we just lie down in it and turn towards it and go swimming in the stream of time and the unpredictability of the future and the incomprehensibility of the past as well, if we're not afraid of it, we will feel secure. When I ask you to tell me your story, who you are, you will only pick out 1/10 of 1% of your life, and you might arrange that as the representation of who you are, what you've done, and so forth. But it's only a tiny percentage of the thousands, the billions of thoughts that you've had, of all the motions of the body. When people describe their life, they choose things like, I owned a motorcycle store, I'm a businessman. That's just one of the things you do. Others might describe themselves as sleepers. I am a sleeper. I sleep 8 hours a day. There was a French artist who was asked, "What do you do?" He said, "I'm a breather. I do a lot of breathing, mostly breathing." It's true. Of all the activities that we do, we could certainly say we mostly breathe. How we choose to define ourselves in the past is just arbitrary. It's a story emphasizing one thing, not another. Why this and not that? Maybe you repeated a whole series of things, but maybe one moment was spectacular. Maybe it was spectacularly bad, or it could be spectacularly good. Which one are you going to choose? Moments, or repetitions, or unconsciousness, or dullness? It's just arbitrary. There's nothing to grasp. The past is incomprehensible. The future is unpredictable. That is the way it is. The Buddha is saying that this complex human mind that can understand the ideas of future and past can also have some unfortunate effects if not handled well. We're not given the proper instruction. Neither at the time of the Buddha, nor certainly to this day, is it ever fully explained to us how to manage being alive as a human. We're trained to do jobs. We're scheduled for this and that. We have arbitrary information. We read all kinds of books about people's lives. You read a book about somebody you really know, and you think, well, maybe it went that way. Or you read an article where somebody writes something about you. It's very fascinating, but that's not the way it was. The Buddha is summarizing it for you because this is the most important information you're going to have in your life. How to manage this thing called time, which is a product of your mind. Your life is a product of your mind. When we talk about life, we're actually talking about the thought processes. Your life is nothing but the thought processes. We can manipulate them. We can do incredible things with those thought processes with very simple technology. The Buddha gives you the technologies. Try this. Try watching your breath. Notice the breathing. Notice the lovely, light, airy quality of this. Ride away into that airy quality. Allow the sense of the body to drift away. Do you start to see that your body is really a product of the mind? You see that as you change your mind, your whole experience of your body changes. As you change your mind, your whole experience of your relationships to others changes. As you change your mind, as you do these techniques, how you regard your past changes. The future changes. You start to understand that from a certain point of view, you can transform the very world you live in. The very structure of reality depends on the careful use of the mind. The Buddha is saying, don't chase around out there. You're the source. It's in your mind. Turn toward the mind. All you need is just a fairly quiet environment and a handful of techniques, spiritual exercises to take along with you. Then he briefly explains the impediments to the good life. What is it that ruins our life? What is it that mildly distresses us? What can lead to profound problems? Only these: aversion and desire and confusion. What can you do about that? First, just listen to that idea and realize that's the source of it. Don't ignore that. That's the arising of wisdom. Secondly, to find out what you can do about these things. He says you can take just a handful, just a few teachings. The most problematic emotion, the one that hurts the most, is hostility, anger, aversion in all its forms. But the Buddha, with a very kindly smile, says, don't you worry. It's the easiest one to get rid of. Aversion is easy to get rid of, mostly because it feels so bad. You're all ears when it comes to freeing yourself of bad feelings, unpleasant experiences. First of all, you may not realize that you have an option. You don't have to actually critique everything. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. Everything you see, everything you hear, everything you smell and taste and touch, everything you think. It's very common for people to keep asking themselves, what's wrong with that? Is that good or is that bad? That habitual process of looking for the fault is where your suffering lies. So realize that you don't have to have an opinion about these things. Let sights be sights. Let sounds be sounds. Smells, taste, touches. Let the flow of thought just be that. Don't invest in it. Just allow that world to be and realize you're off the hook. You don't have to have an opinion about everything. You don't have to comment on everything. It's just as it is. It's way too much work to have an opinion about everything. That's the withdrawal from the source of hostility. The unwise focus on the fault. The unwise focus on the fault of you, of your life, of your future, of the people around you, of societies, of political systems, of thought systems, of the weather, of everything. The Buddha just says, don't go there. Just bring the mind back. Say, stop that. See if you can just walk through the day without your mind fixing on the fault of a sight, of a sound, of a smell, of a taste, of a touch. Then you have a lot more time, and you can find yourself a lot less stressed, with an incredible sense of freedom. You'll feel like, I'm off the hook. Could it really be possible I'm allowed to walk through life like this? Is it true I really don't have to wear ruts in my cortex anymore? Am I allowed to do this? Yes, you are. And then you've set yourself up for something really beautiful. By the way, you might be asking, am I allowed to have a beautiful experience? Shouldn't I have to pay for it? Maybe there's only a few people allowed to have this, but am I? Is an ordinary person without any qualifications allowed to have a beautiful experience without winning the Nobel Prize or being first in my class or making a lot of money? Am I allowed to? The Buddha says, yeah, you got to get past that one. Don't even think about whether you should or shouldn't, whether you're deserving of it or not. You're not in any position to have an opinion on it. Just find out. If you have a beautiful experience, you can have a beautiful experience. Go toward that beautiful experience. Love, friendliness, wonderful experience. To be with your friends, or even just one truly good friend, what a beautiful experience. You always want to go back to it. You never get tired of your friend. You don't get tired of friendliness. It never wears out. He says now that you've stopped squandering your energy in creating distress, the painful feelings of harsh, critical, endless fault-finding, when you dispense with that, you've set yourself up for the possibility of the opposite, the very, very beautiful. When you look out on things, you look out radiating this pleasant feeling. The world, then, is just a backdrop for the feeling. Remember, it has nothing to do with assessment. There's no intellectual operation here. You're not asking whether anybody deserves this or not. You're not asking whether they're wonderful beings or cute or entertaining. No, don't care. That's just a backdrop for indiscriminately enjoying this feeling. This is radically different from the way we think. There's no transaction involved. No, he says, that's the mystical thing. It's just there. It's available. It's produced by you with no stringent requirements. Nobody has to be especially wonderful or anything. It's just available to you. Just let it radiate out and enjoy that. This is the Buddha's prescription. Or you can have a confused and difficult life, and most people do. Or you can do this and drop tons of this distress. Days and weeks and months and years of distress. You can drop it. This is again the most troubling of the emotions, this aversive stuff. It happens because you commit yourself to finding fault with everything, and it produces this suffering and distress. The second one, desire, is less troubling. You want things. You want beautiful things. You want beautiful people. You want beautiful teacups. You want a beautiful house, beautiful weather. You want to be beautiful. You want. And the Buddha says this is not so bad, actually, but it's still a problem. It leaves you in debt, as in the modern sense of credit card debt. You always have to pay. Wanting the beautiful puts you instantly into debt. The moment you want it, you're in debt. Why are you in debt? Because you don't have it, and until you get it, you refuse to be happy. You're saying, If I had that, I would be happy. So therefore, I don't have that. I'm not allowed to be happy. I won't be fully happy. I must not be happy. Only that would make me happy. So you just pulled a trick on yourself. Very, very fast. You just created a sense of lack. And that's the problem with desire. This is hard to get rid of, actually. The anger thing is much easier. You can get rid of that. The desire is harder to get rid of because the moment when you get the thing, there's a little celebration. It lasts for a little while. You actually enjoy it for a little while, but then you're on to the next thing. And also, you can have a bit of joy with the anticipation of getting the thing. It's coming tomorrow, next week, next year. There's a certain anticipatory joy. It's accompanied sometimes by pleasant feelings, and so it's famously tricky to see through that. First of all, explain it fully to yourself. What's wrong with this? What's the problem about these things that are quite nice? I mean, I've had some, and then it wore out, or my interest in it wore out, and it's dead to me now. You start to see how the story goes. You're never finally satisfied. There is always the phrase, and then what? Once you run it through in the long term, you just see that this never goes to the place where you want to get to. There are moments of pleasure along the way, but ultimately it never goes to where I want to be. I'm never finally content. I never finally find that beautiful experience, that beautiful sense of contentment which overflows and is just on the edge of an ecstatic experience. It's not too dramatically ecstatic, but even better than dramatic ecstasy. It's subtle ecstasy. This is the experience of a human at peace. A human at peace is one of the great miracles. It lasts a minute or 30 seconds or an hour, or in the case of some very fortunate wise people, it lasts almost indefinitely. The idea of a human content and at peace just makes everything pale in comparison. We can get the taste of that through metta as well. We're using a little bit of wisdom to reflect on how anger arises, using a little bit of wisdom to reflect on the problematic nature of desire, and we're using practice and imagination and memory to try to induce the experience of contentment and overflowing friendliness so we get the taste of it. It's a very addictive taste. Everything else drops into the background. You start to lose interest in those other things. That can be a little bit alarming, but it's natural. The other stuff doesn't hold up by comparison to moments of well-being, even a few moments. What was that? That was wonderful. We want to induce these through serenity and some wisdom. It's not enlightenment, but you're going in the right direction. So this is a small handful of things that you take along. The other is to ask yourself, how much time do I have, by the way? Is this a hobby? You know it's true, people do die. But when? Very uncertain. It's good every now and then to reflect on that. This should not induce any kind of fear or despair or anything like that. There should be no anxiety around this. If it does, then you're holding it wrongly, and you have to go back and just find the breath. Find metta until you can hold this idea of the brevity of your life and the uncertainty of its duration and the duration of your health, as well as a precious motivator. It just says, I really need to make a move now. Life is precious, it's short, it's very uncertain, and if I'm ever going to taste any of this wonderful stuff, I should get on with it. It is a priority in life. It's not about quantity of life or the mere prosaic stuff of life. You have to interrupt yourself and say, I've heard about this stuff. Is it possible to experience it? How would I do that? Getting your priorities straight with this little handful of things. Understanding the problem of fault finding. Understanding the downside of craving and desire. Finding alternative food which has no downside, such as metta, such as the breath, such as the fresh, restorative properties of stopping all this endless thinking, this endless inner chatter, the endless story. These are the simple tools by which you do this. You clear the mind of the story through the breath. You clear the mind of negative emotions through metta. Then you set yourself up for this integration of serenity, this calmness, and this opening of the eye. You see how to conduct yourself. That's what Dhamma is. What's my relationship to reality, my life? That's the insight. I'm in a proper relationship with the facts of time, of the ungraspable nature of things. I've grown up. I'm no longer childishly trying to grab things that just melt in my hands. This is the awakening of wisdom. You're in tune with the way things really are. It's not a distressing realization. It's a wonderful realization and it never goes away. You can't lose it. The circumstances will never be such that it's inappropriate. It always is the right thing in all circumstances. When things are going well, you don't forget reality, and so the rug never gets pulled out from underneath you. And when things are going badly, you never forget reality. You don't get lost in it. You say, it's just part of the dream. It flows away. Change happens. Can you remember that, though? The memory is a difficult thing because it's associated with feeling. When you have a feeling, that calm, centered feeling, then you will remember the truth. When you don't have that feeling, you can't remember the truth, and you can't remember how it is because it's not accompanied by feeling. Memory and feeling are intertwined. If you don't have the feeling, the magic can't happen. You can't recapture reality. That's why we work with the feelings, trying to bring up such things as loving kindness. When you remember what it is, how amazing this human experience is, and how tricky it is to be human, how tricky it is for everybody, you become very forgiving. You understand that it's so easy to go off the tracks. That feeling restores your memory and your wisdom. Loving kindness is a basis for wisdom. The feeling brings you back to the proper balanced picture of things, not exaggerating the fault of things, not exaggerating the beauty of things, but a sane and balanced appreciation of just how things really are. You'll say things much differently. If you set yourself in the feeling, your speech when you talk to somebody will be very different. All the thinking in the world can't formulate the right words in the right tone like feeling can, like the right emotion can. If you want to communicate at your optimum, forget the words and go to your feeling. Raise the feeling, and then you might be able to say just the right thing in the right way. This also applies when talking to yourself. You will now be talking to yourself in the right tone, in the right way, in a kindly way, in a balanced way. You'll be able to fix the little faults and so forth without any aversion. You'll have a loving ability to remodel. This is why it's critical if you want to treat yourself well, and who doesn't? You must find your way to that balance and warmth of metta, including yourself in it. It doesn't mean you'll have no faults, nothing to fix. You'll have lots of things to fix, but you'll fix them in a beautiful way, with skill and without distress. Any questions or comments, reflections?
In the wilderness of the heart sutta, what did he mean by, what was the difference between craving for form and craving for the body?
There is a note about that. It says that craving, the difference between craving for form, craving for the body, the craving for the body or the fever, delight in the body, that's like your own body. And then form is external bodies or forms, not just bodies, but anything outside of your own body.
I think it was similar to one of the other talks, but yeah, I don't think you read that specific one.
Yeah, I think he quoted Bhante Gunaratana in one of his previous talks. He said the same thing, but maybe it wasn't the exact same talk. Or they took a paragraph, because it seemed to be verbatim the same. Maybe they took a paragraph from one of his other talks and inserted it in there. Yeah.
I do like how he talked about going into debt and how instantaneous it is, the lacking, and then instantly this craving of I can't be happy until I have that. So it's like robbing yourself.
It's like you were okay, and then the desire comes, and then there's that sense of lack. You know. Yeah, it's the practice with things like desire, it's a difficult dance because we might think, well, how can I even function then? If I give rise to a desire and then there's that sense of lack and we're not supposed to have desire, how could I even function? How could I have to want to come into the meditation hall and meditate. So it's food for thought. We have to want to practice, but then the practice is to give up wanting.
Kind of like Lama's injunction about sense desire. Like, what happens when you don't get it? Nothing. Nothing happens. Fine. It's always fine.
What happens when you don't fulfill your desire? Nothing. Are you checking my answers, Tony? Make sure it's right. Does that sound right? Does that sound right to you?
Sounds great.